Since the beginning of time, man, scholar, and even dreamers have asked themselves, will there be a day in which I can play my childhood video games on the go? Well, today that question has an answer, and it's a quite good answer.
Well, yes. And to do that, we're going to actually look at the Retroid Pocket 2. In this video, we're going to cover three major things. One, getting familiar with the device and find out where everything is. Two, how to actually upload ROMs into your device and where to find them. And three, how to operate RetroArch, which is where you'll mainly probably be playing these games unless you want to mess around and configure the other standalone emulators that come with the device. So, with that said, let's get started. Now, we're not going to do an unboxing video. There's already tons of videos out in the wild that show the contents of the Retroid Pocket 2 when you get the device and what's inside the box. My job here is to just simply go over simple setup so that way you have the tools necessary when you get your device on hand so that way you can get the ball rolling. With that said, I'm also not going to do any sort of tech rundown because there's already a bunch of tech people that, have explained the content and what actually is inside of this thing to death. So, yeah. When you boot up, you'll be brought to your home screen. And you could basically go over everything with your D-pad. But if you want to go freely and not check everything that's on the top bars and all that, you're going to want to activate mouse mode. Now, to activate mouse mode, all you do is hold down the home button for a couple seconds, and you'll see that you now have a cursor. Now, how this works is that you control your actions by clicking A to confirm, like a real mouse, and B to go back. So let's go to the main menu first. And over here, you're going to see the menu is chock full of things that this thing comes already preloaded with. Now, in order to be able to go down this menu, you're going to want to go down with the D-pad as your scroller, and then your mouse will control the rest of the actions. The first thing I suggest anyone doing is going to the Play Store. And right over here, the top left, you're going to see three lines. When you go to those three lines, it'll bring your settings up. And the one thing you're going to want to do above all else is go to the auto updates and set this to do not auto update your apps, because this is operating a specific build of Android OS, and if you go and let this thing auto update, it's going to update to the latest build of a certain app that may not be compatible with the OS that the Retroid Pocket 2 is running. So one question that tends to occur when it comes to using the mouse mode is, can you make the mouse faster? Well, yes, and you can also even make it slower. It's all personal preference. To do that, what you need to do is tap on the left on your D-pad, and you will see this thing is now zooming all around the screen, and I can barely follow it through the viewfinder. So, to slow down the input, if you guessed it already, you can leave a comment below. You tap on the right. On the right, it'll slow the mouse down and give you more control. So, now that we checked everything that we can do in the Play Store, you can download applications if you feel like it. But we're going to go into settings now, which I had open just a moment ago. And like I had mentioned before, the Retroid Pocket 2 is already pre-configured to work with everything that you need. All you have to do is upload the ROMs and whatnot. But in case you want to get a little more technical know-how, I would suggest studying the Wi-Fi. So that way, if you don't know how to connect Wi-Fi, which in this day and age is kind of weird, you can feel free to do so. I recommend looking into the Bluetooth settings because you can use the Retroid Pocket 2 as a little console and just plug in external controls. I don't know all the ones that this accepts, but I do know that a good majority are compatible with it. And since all you have to do is plug it in through the mini HDMI, you just have to plug it in and you're ready to go. Thing that I recommend checking out is your memory and your storage, because this will help you not only see what your memory card is formatted like, but it'll also tell you how much space it is. And the cool thing about Android, as opposed to my experience with iOS, is that you could actually look into every little aspect of the SD card, so you can see what's unnecessary space, what is taking up the most space, and what do you have running in the background that could be eating up the memory. You can do all that stuff within the settings menu and clean up as you need, so that way your performance is not affected overall while using the device. So that just about covers everything that we need to do in section 1, which is learn how to activate mouse mode and change its speed, going to the Play Store and disabling auto updates so nothing that's running on the Retroid Pocket 2 is ruined by accident. And we saw what are the things that we need to study, or use specifically if you're waiting on your device, in the settings menu. So now we're ready to move on to section 2, which is how to upload your ROMs onto this so you can actually play them, and 2, where to get your ROMs, because apparently no one knows how to use Google. So now that we've covered the general basics in operation, we're going to help get the ROMs that you already have on your computer onto here. So that way you can use the device as intended. To accomplish this, you're going to need a SD card reader. I tend to use my flash drive SD card reader because I have no idea what they did to get this to work as well as it does, but it blows your standard SD card reader out the water by a million. This is the stock SD card that comes with the Retroid Pocket 2. I suggest, if anything, you only keep this handy so that way you always have access as sort of a hot switch between using the Android side of this device and the Retroid OS that the team developed and put together, which is like Pandora's box from what I've heard. And it already has a bunch of ROMs preloaded, but they're all with like completely wrong names, and some of them run better or worse than if you were to use them on the Android side. That being said, if you want to play arcade games pretty much perfect, I would suggest sticking with the stock SD card or keep it on hand. What I've seen is the general consensus, and is my personal piece of advice as well, is when you get your device, pop the stock SD card as soon as you can, hop on your computer and copy and paste all the files onto your PC. This will allow you to have all the stock settings on file, but won't obligate you to stick to using only the SD card with your device, and will allow you to switch out and put whatever SD card that you want of varying sizes. Everyone's been saying that 128 is the sweet spot. Some other people are using 256 and higher. The consensus is use it as you need and whatever fits your specific preference. So, without further ado, why don't we start by uploading a ROM from my PC onto the Retroid Pocket 2. The process of this is pretty simple. All we're going to do is just open up our SD card holder slot, pop the card out, which place it back down, and then we're gonna insert the card just like that. And now we're gonna hop on over to the PC. So you're gonna insert the SD card. You're gonna hear that it went in. Now, initially when you put in your SD card, it's gonna want to try to fix it, and it'll format the card if you do, which may cause problems. I'm not the technical expert here, but you can definitely look up in the discords where people have discussed it at length what it is What are the advantages, I mean, with formatting it against keeping it set as an external SD card? But we're not going to get into that. We're here to load ROMs onto your device. So it's pretty simple. To do that, all you have to do is literally drag and drop ROMs. Ideally, if, let's see, we can zoom in. Ideally, you should have your ROMs set up like this. You shouldn't have them zipped or in a folder for each game. You should just have them out in the open. The only exception to this would be arcade ROMs. Those need to be zipped at all times. I don't know the reason behind it, but it's just how it is. Never mind the RetroArch backup. If you are new to this or if you haven't been following, there was a massive hacking that took place a couple of weeks ago or months at this point in time of filming. I'm not sure, but I was able to grab a master backup of all the cores that they had before their system went down. That issue may be fixed or not. I haven't been keeping tabs, but yeah, I have that there, so ignore that. That's not part of the explanation. So in order to access your SD card that you just plugged in, it's normally going to be considered as the USB drive or SD card reader. Basically, it'll be isolated. So when you click on it, you'll see that it comes up as blank because you have nothing in there yet. But once you start loading ROMs and just dragging and dropping them, you'll get a file that looks like this. When you click on it, all the things that you've been loading onto it will come up here. Now, we want to add a ROM onto this. So in order to do that, we're just going to open up this WinRAR and extract the ROM onto our desktop. Cool. We now have the ROM ready to go. All we have to do now is, well, this is just for my sake, leaving any excess files around. But we have the isolated ROM right here. So you'll notice it'll drag and be left alone if you do that. But what we want to do is send it to a specific part of the SD card, which is our GBA folder, since this is a Game Boy Advance game. So you're going to open your Game Boy Advance folder, and you're going to just drag and drop. Now you'll see that the game was added, which we were trying to do. It is called right here, Metabots. We're using that as our example. So once you added it, just by dragging and dropping to your specific ROM folder, all you're going to do now, sorry about that, is eject your SD card. Simple as that. You're going to get the prompt that you're safe to go, so you just plug it out, close that, and now we're going to hop right back on to your Retroid Pocket 2. And that's really all there is to it, really. You just make sure your ROMs are in folders. You get the ROM that you want to get, extract it, and then throw it into the folder, and then throw it onto the SD card. That's it. What we described in the previous demonstration was the ideal situation when someone did their homework and has their ROMs all ready to go, so when they get their device, they do what we demonstrated, which was drag and drop onto the SD card and plug and play. But what if you're the person that doesn't have any ROMs? What if you're the person that's paranoid and is that individual that always asks, "Wait, mate, I want to emulate and play games, but I don't know where to get the ROMs. Do you know where I can find some?" Well, yeah. Let me share with you some of my favorite sites. They are... Wait, what? Who let you in here? Wait, what? Nintendo Ninjas? Sega SWAT? The Atari Air Force? Come on, guys, come on. Let's was a joke. It was a joke. Oh boy. Okay, so the Nintendo Ninjas, Sega SWAT, and Atari Air Force told me a valuable thing and lesson about sharing ROMs and where to download them. Don't do it, please. Skits aside and jokes aside, I technically and by law cannot share with you exactly where to download ROMs. I didn't understand it until I looked into it, why other channels always do all these fancy showcases but never tell you this is where you get X thing. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are behind it, and I don't want to be filming this behind prison bars. So the gist of this is simple. If you Google a specific wrong name, you will more than likely get a reputable site. The chances of you getting a virus from one of these sites is literally 1 in a million. So unless you're not full of yourself and you think you're the biggest thing and you are that 1 in a million individual, chances are you'll be fine. So happy hunting. With all things considered, we have now completed section 2, which was how to upload ROMs from your PC into your Retroid Pocket 2. And as you saw, it's pretty simple. Drag and drop, plug and play. Now we're going to enter the final section, which is relatively the shortest one, which is how to use RetroArch to access all these ROMs and, start playing. It seems our time is finally at an end, isn't it? All we have to do now is take the final steps and you can be on your way. So, let's say you have all your ROMs put into little folders, you did the whole drag and drop, and now it's time to actually start playing the games. To do that, you're going to boot your device up like I have, right here. And you're going to see right off the bat that there's 2 RetroArches. Now, the main menu, I think, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't have anything, so you can customize and set it up how you want. But I'm getting sidetracked. Point is, there's 2 RetroArches. The vanilla RetroArch on the left and GBA RetroArch. Their names are pretty self-explanatory in what they do. Vanilla RetroArch will play basically 99% of your ROMs because it has all the cores for a whole bunch of systems and whatnot. And GBA RetroArch is mainly and only for your GBA games. Now, you could play GBA games on the RetroArch, the vanilla one, but it will take a lot longer. That being said, our example that we used was with GBA RetroArch, so we're going to go here. I'm going to open it up, and you'll see that everything is pre-configured. Now, when you get the Retroid Pocket 2 out of the box, all of this is already set up. You don't have to touch anything else except the following procedure. You scroll down to load contents, and inside RetroArch, these buttons function like a PlayStation controller, and it'll literally say loaded as a PlayStation controller. So this is X, that's square, that's triangle, and that's circle. If you ever played a PlayStation game, you'll know that X is confirm and circle is to go back in 100% of the instances. So you're going to go down to load content. You're going to click on start directory. Now, most of the time, a lot of people will have this be the window where all their stuff comes out. But in the event that this is what it looks like, you're just going to click again on parent directory. And oh, look, it's the lost.dir, which is lost directory, I think. Don't quote me on that. You click on it again, and all of your ROMs are here for you to enjoy. Now, since we're in GBA RetroArch, we're going to go to GBA. And just to see that the game that we downloaded to test is here, we're going to scroll down all the way to the end. So where do we have our Metabots? Metabots. Here it is. So you see, the game that we loaded from our PC is now here, and we're going to click on it. And that's it. That's literally all you have to do. Let's raise up the volume. I think you can skip this. Yeah, you can skip that. So that's enough of that. And that's all there is to it. Now, something that I should mention is that when you run RetroArch out of the box, everything is pre-configured. However, there are certain things that you should be aware of and also pay attention to. Now, to access the menu while you're in game is not set up in GBA RetroArch. So before you start playing any games, I implore you to go all the way to your input. And what you want to do is scroll down to your hotkeys. When you go to hotkeys, you're going to go all the way to the last option. Hang on. Which is the menu toggle. You can set that to whatever button you feel comfortable with, and this also applies to the vanilla RetroArch. Now, remember, when you make any sort of changes, go all the way back, and then when you go to configurations, you're going to want to save RetroArch changes, because if you do all these things and you exit the app, it'll reset itself. But if you save it before you close the app, then you should be fine. And that's basically RetroArch in a nutshell. Now, if you want to learn about all these other emulators, there's a bunch of people that know how to do this a lot better than I do. This is just something I did out of boredom to teach you guys what helped me get started. But I have been testing all the other things, and PSP runs great. Dreamcast takes a little while to set up, but if you get it, it'll work very well. N64 also works extremely well. You just need to be patient and, play around and mess with it. But yeah, that's literally all there is to it. I hope this guide was useful to you in any sense, or if you got a good laugh out of it. And that is it. You either pass or fail this course. I'm not a teacher, so I can't grade you on that. But if I see any of you whining that you broke something or that you didn't do it wrong, I'll be able to tell that you didn't watch this video from start to finish. With that said, I bid you a good day, and I hope you enjoy your Retroid Pocket 2. If you found anything interesting, if you liked the video, do the thing that everyone asks you to do. I don't just do electronics. I just did this because this is what everyone is talking about at the moment, with good reason, because it's an excellent device. But I am an artist by trade, so if you'd like me to do anything in particular, go ahead and leave the suggestion down below.